Welcome to SecTor 2018. I'm Danny Bradbury. This is Mark Nunnikhoven, VP of Cloud Research at Trend Micro. He's just finished delivering a keynote. It was kind of a downturn keynote, right?
It was?
You depressed a lot of people. Explain what you said.
I did, yeah, and that's always the challenge. I think it was an important message. I don't know how I could have brought it to a lighter tone, but the keynote was all about culture. It was about why we make a bunch of security decisions the way we do, sort of highlighting some invisible constraints. And when you look at the abstract and sort of the big story which I was trying to present, you see that these constraints or perceived constraints come from a very long line of logical decisions. Nobody made a bad call at any point. But we're kind of too busy fighting fires to lift our heads up long enough to realize where we sit within the organization, the impact that has, and our approach to some of the problems, and sort of we're digging a hole deeper when we don't have to be. So unfortunately it came off a little down. Tried to lighten it up as much as possible, but I think it got people really thinking about some of the challenges they're facing and whether they actually need to face them.
One of the biggest things for me that came out of the keynote was that security isn't necessarily integrated with the rest of the organization. So explain how we can fix that.
Yeah, so we are very much still off to the side. We're looking from the outside in, kind of rubbing the frost away from the window, envious of what's going on. And that's starting to change as the nature of, more and more breaches are brought to the board level, and people are starting to ask the questions, but we as a community are not ready for those conversations. We still think very much on the technical side. We think about how many things we stop in the perimeter as opposed to how much business value we're protecting or helping deliver. That's going to take a lot of fundamental changes with security culture, also with security skill sets. And that's really hard because I like technical solutions because I can normally tell you whether they're right or wrong, and they have a finite timeline. I can roll this tool out within a week or within a month. When it comes to culture, it's a lot of little wins and a lot of little changes over time, but it's much needed. We need to shift our roles to be ones of educators within the company to help people understand the risks that they're implicitly accepting as well as explicitly accepting.
We talk about theory with security in terms of educating users and so on, but you're a company with employees and a process, right? And the process says you have to do things a certain way to stay secure, and you've educated users, but the users are overworked and under-resourced, so they cut corners in order to get the job done. So it seems to me that the conversation is really one about extra resources. So you have to say to managers, hey, take a profit, a 1% cut in profit in order to introduce more resources into the company so that users can actually do what you're asking them to do to be secure. But that's a really difficult conversation, right? So how do you do that?
It's an extremely difficult conversation, but one of the things in that premise was really important is that people aren't trying to do bad. They're trying to get their job done, and they're under a set of constraints. And security generally is trying to do the same thing. But it's come to some sort of loggerheads where we're saying, oh, the users did this again, or they're using that tool. Why aren't they using this approved tool? And it's really just at the end of the day, people trying to get work done so they can get home to see the kids. There's no easy answer. And that was sort of the down part on the keynote. Is there's no, hey, this is how you do it. I've solved it for everybody. I think the first step is highlighting that it's an issue, highlighting that it's a problem. The next ends up being switching our approach, having empathy for the other organizations. As security people, you need to understand that they are just trying to get the job done. How can we help them realize some of the challenges that they're raising by taking an alternative path? Or realizing that, hey, maybe we in security and we in IT have not delivered a good tool, because obviously if they're going around it, it doesn't meet the business need. No easy answer, but we need to start working on it.
There's so many different departments in the average company, each with their own particular agenda. Do you often find that they butt up against security and you have different outcomes in mind?
Sometimes, but there's no easy answer for it either. And I think that's going to be it was a continuing theme in the keynote. It's going to be a continuing theme in our discussion. There's no easy answers anywhere here, but first step is acknowledging that that's a problem. You can't say one thing with one hand and do another with the opposite.
So no easy answers. So start with difficult conversations and with many different stakeholders in the business. Mark, it's been great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.